Our next fight here, we've got Washington Da Silva. He is going to be taking on former Ultimate Fighter tournament winner and Armed Forces veteran Colton Smith. 4-year age different. Height is basically the same. The weight is identical, and the reach is close enough for me.
And the lovely Emily Miller gets us started here in the welterweight division. As we said, this one's scheduled for 3 rounds. Contrasting styles here. Young man out of Texas and the young man out of Recife, Brazil, set to go at it. And the one thing you notice about Da Silva, he's fighting 2 times in the same calendar year for the first time since 2010. So you don't want to bring up the ring rust Chael, but not a guy that puts a lot of time in major fights in the same year.
Yeah, that can be a real thing. You know, hopefully he's getting his rounds in practice, but this is no easy task. Colton Smith is a stone cold killer and has shown that time and time again. And I think he's slipping a little bit.
He's working on the traction there in the middle of the ring on the alien wear. I don't know if it's the logo or the moisture that possibly is on there from previous fights when they disinfect the flooring.
And at this point, it doesn't matter what it is. He better get his footing because he's in the middle of a cage fight. Da Silva with some good flinches. He hasn't attacked yet. Colton with a spinning kick. That did touch the body.
Colton Smith continues to point out to the official, Brian Minor, there's some wet spots on the surface. We'll see how that plays a factor, but Smith decides to go upstairs now. Both fighters look to be in pretty good conditions. They came to the scale during the weigh-ins yesterday, Chael. You got that eye test, and both the guys certainly seem to pass the eye test. You can tell they've definitely put in the time in the gym.
Yeah, they certainly have. They're both moving very well. There's a little too much distance between them. When they do their fakes, they got some space. Colton is going to have to let that go.
Yeah.
The ring may well be wet.
The fact that he is talking about it a little bit more, and Da Silva has not said a thing about it or made any kind of gesture towards it, makes you wonder if it's now in his head. So we are underway here with 3:30 to go in round number 1. This one's scheduled for 3 in the welterweight division. One of those building fights, Chael, that each of these guys knows is important for them to take the next step. You've got Ray Sefo, Ali Abdelaziz sitting cage side, as well as Carlos Silva, the CEO of World Series of Fighting, watching on. Impressing the brass is always a good thing.
Well, it's a must. Look, there's politics in this business, Todd, like there are in anything else. And this fight is just starting. I don't want to be ultra critical 2 minutes in, but these guys are going to have to both move about 6 inches forward. There is enough space right now for the listeners at home. If either one of these guys was to extend an arm or a leg, he simply would not touch his opponent. The opponent is too far away. They need to step in about 6 inches and then get those strikes going.
All about real estate here in the World Series of Fighting, and right now Chael Sonnen says there's too much between Washington Da Silva and Colton Smith early on here as we approach the halfway point of round number 1. This one's scheduled for 3.
Todd, you know, if you ever watch a boxing match, the guys that are in our spots here as the commentators, they'll always tell the fans there's a feeling out process. Well, what they really mean by that is trying to find your range, trying to find out how close do I need to be before I can touch this guy, judging his timing, his speed, his footwork. Even right there, Colton's with a big overhand right. He used it to close the distance, but it was an air ball. They're just too far apart.
So into the clinch they go as we go under 2 minutes here at round number 1 of the welterweight division. World Series of Fighting here from Mashantucket, Connecticut, and now the pace is picking up, and Da Silva gets a nice little takedown there, goes in, and then immediately Colton Smith starts scrambling for some wrist.
That was an outstanding takedown by Da Silva. He was tied up with Colton Smith up top, pulled him one direction, changed elevation, and then ran him over. Colton Smith needs to push the head away. Straight arm or dig an underhook. Now, he had an underhook, he let it go. There's the space he needs, he's back to his feet. Excellent stand-up.
So Da Silva tries to get some points in there, lands a couple quick wild rights and an elbow, and Colton Smith back to his feet. Does this fight go the distance in a stand-up format that we've seen? It seems like both fighters are not interested in going to the ground and making this a grinder.
Yeah, they've just got too much space. I'm not totally sure. I'm very interested in this clinch position. Da Silva's doing something interesting here, Todd. When he's tied up top with that hand around Colton's collar of his neck, he's bringing his own elbow in very tight, and it's blocking Colton off. Colton's not able to get through that, and Da Silva's using this in a defensive manner. It's very effective. There's a slip, but Colton Smith takes his back either way.
Takes his back and then throws Da Silva to the ground.
Ground and pound.
43 seconds.
Solidify the position. Hit him up. There you go.
Colton Smith has unlocked his hands. He can keep his hands locked till his position improves a little bit. Perhaps even getting a leg in, he would be safer.
Keep fighting.
Up and down.
See Da Silva looking at the grip, looking at the grab, seeing his options.
Now make him pay.
20 seconds to go here in round number 1.
Da Silva with a Kimura lock, but Colton Smith just straightens the arm out, takes it to the other side. And now,
Wow, he's got the
Colton
full
Smith's
mount.
in full mount.
So Colton Smith has got 10 seconds to see what he can do. He takes the back as Da Silva spins around, and now come the heavy elbows, and round 1 will go in the books, and we will see a second round here at Foxwoods.
Todd, that's relevant. I think that was probably enough to win that round. It was very back and forth, but what an outstanding way to end. You go from full mount to full double hooks back control. Very good for Colton Smith.
Listen to me, you got to make him
So
miss.
what
You gotta
started
make him
out
pay,
as
all
a
right?
very slow beginning. Let's go back and look at the Da Silva takedown, which came midway through, and it looked like this fight was going to be a little bit of a long feeling out process.
Now, Todd, look how Da Silva's got his elbow in there to block him. He pulls Colton Smith one way, he changes elevation, and he just runs. I mean, just like a football player would do a tackle, he runs him down to the ground. A little bit later, about 10 seconds left in the fight, we see Colton Smith got on top. He was in some jeopardy here, but he straightened his arm out, used this opportunity to go to full mount, and eventually transitioned to Washington's back, and that's how the round ended.
This is your fight.
So both fighters have a pretty good gauge on just how fast his opponent is. Da Silva and Smith set now for round number 2.
Round 2, ready? Round 2, ready? Fight!
Colton Smith with a lot of feints, a lot of hand movement.
Time! Come here. Time! Hey,
Well,
kick the
now
leg.
this is
Scissors.
interesting.
He's not fucking doing nothing. He's not going to grab it. Kick the leg.
It's got tape coming out of the
Come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Cut this off.
and tending to the tape job
Good.
on the
Go. Close the door.
left hand of Colton Smith. Backstage, Matt Hamill
Time it.
getting his hands taped up. He's got a good fight going tonight. You'll see that later on. Hamill taking on Vinny Magalhães. Back to live fighting action here in Mashantucket, Connecticut. Todd Harris, Chael Sonnen, glad to have you with us. Round number 2 underway after that short stoppage to tend to the tape job of Colton Smith. Smith on the right side of your screen taking on Washington Da Silva out of Brazil.
I like this. They're locked up here. Every time these guys have locked up so far, something dramatic has happened. Somebody has been drugged down to the canvas, and we're just not seeing anything happen when they're on their feet because, again, they're keeping too much distance. Right here, Colton Smith looking to hook him with his legs and pull him off. There he drags Da Silva down.
Work your position, Colton.
Now, on paper, Da Silva is a very high-level black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but Colton Smith has really shown some terrific skills himself. Defended a Kimura earlier on, transitioned to full mount, took the back. Right here, he's going to look for a little ground and pound.
Posture. Nice job.
Now he slips a knee through. Very good pass right there, Todd.
At the start of this fight, we talked about ring rust, a little bit of layoff. It's been 7 months since Washington Da Silva, who's on his back right now, picked up a win in Newburgh, New Jersey. Colton Smith stayed active after his UFC run. He began fighting in a regional circuit in Texas, Rock's Extreme MMA promotion. So both fighters trying to work through the kinks as they make their way here to the World Series of Fighting. And this is an all-important fight in the welterweight division. As right now, Colton Smith, Chael, you've seen this before, the short, quick little elbows. They do some damage.
Oh, they absolutely do. We even saw one in our last fight. Now, Colton Smith's really got him pinned down here. This is called the Salvary position, made famous by Ivan Salvary. This is a demoralizing position if you were in Da Silva's spot. Not only are you getting hit, but your options for offense are limited, and it's tough to get out of.
Got the one arm pinned down and allowed Colton Smith to rack up some points, first with the hammer fist, then to the elbows, and now with the side control. He's got a lot of options here. If you're Washington Da Silva, I know he's practiced this defense before. How do you get out of this, and how do you turn this thing around?
I tell you, Da Silva's really got to free up his arms. Colton Smith is trapping and locking down right now his far arm. he's got to get one of his arms through and get to an underhook position and try to create some room. And then his options from there to come back to his feet or even get to a full guard position. But right now, Da Silva, who on paper is the superior grappler, is really being handled by Colton Smith.
2 minutes, Colton. 2 minutes more.
There's those elbows again, Todd. Colton has killed the far arm with his own arms,
There you go, Colton.
and he was working on killing the near arm with his legs by pinning him down.
This is just good old-fashioned, grinded out, ground and pound. And unfortunately for Washington Da Silva right now, he is the recipient of short elbows, hammer fists, and knees to the midsection.
Well, I tell you, Todd, Da Silva really looks confused here. He isn't wiggling from hip to hip, and he finds himself right back in this salivary position.
Nice pressure.
A lot of energy right there by Silva.
Look forward, stare.
Colton Smith has what we call a north-south choke locked up. He comes back to side control. But Da Silva is flat on his back, Todd. He's not going from hip to hip. He's not digging underhooks. He really looks confused in this spot. And sometimes when you have a very high-level grappler, they'll be amateur in some of the most basic positions because they're so good in the gym, they don't end up in those positions.
Let me see.
Right here, Colton Smith.
Doc, come here. No, I'm good. Sit up. Stay right
Colton
there.
Smith was hit in the eye.
Another doc check you out.
Hit him real good.
Come here. Doc,
I
lead
gotta
ahead of
ask
a
you,
ground
Chael.
fighter.
Colt Smith called for the doctor, said I got hit in the eye.
Which you cannot do in MMA.
Right.
You cannot call timeout
Side.
unless they're arguing that he was hit with an illegal
One point
strike.
deduction.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and he was.
Lead ahead of a ground fighter.
Oh, it was a knee. Todd, I thought it was an elbow.
Side control, side control.
Back down on the ground. Side control.
See, Todd, right when you think you have a oh, he most certainly
Yeah.
was.
Get a nice egg on his head.
Back in.
Wow.
Ready? Hey.
So
So you cannot kick or knee to the head of a grounded opponent in the World Series of Fighting. And although Colton Smith is in the dominant positions down, Washington Da Silva brought the knee up and caught him just above
50
his
seconds.
eyebrow.
Come on,
yeah, so the
Let's
way
go,
this would have worked, Todd, if Colton Smith said he could not continue, this fight
Yep.
would be over and he would win by disqualification. I would have to suspect he doesn't know that rule. There is at this point no benefit to continuing.
He passed into Mount so quickly right there, Chael. Now he's in complete dominant position, and Da Silva can't just lay here and take these shots.
It's amazing how dominant Colton Smith has been on the ground. Absolutely not the way we thought this
Start
fight
of the fight, it looked like Colton Smith was happy to make this a stand-up striking battle and work his way to striking victory. And this time he's turned the tables on Washington Da Silva. Historically, the fighters out of Brazil come in with very slick Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and right now it is Colton Smith that has turned this into an old-fashioned ground and pound and a big elbow to close out round number 2. And fortunately for Da Silva, Brian Miner was there to stop it as Colton Smith was loading up with another big right elbow.
Yeah, that was a very ugly round. You know, you comment on the fact that Da Silva has not competed a lot in the last few years since 2011. We're really seeing that. He's just kind of a beat behind. And one thing when you don't compete a lot, you talk about ring rust, but you're just a little bit slow. Your reactions are a little bit off. And that I really feel like we're seeing that here, particularly on the ground with Da Silva.
You got to get mean, you got to get angry, and you got to go for this. This is it, okay? You got to do it now. All right? If it's not even, you're losing.
How about this? Marlon Moraes on the left and Renzo Gracie, Renzinho in the house. Two absolute legends of the sport taking in the fight here at World Series of Fighting 24, the bantamweight champion and a man who has trained plenty of champions.
Watch over there, it's getting slick. Round 3, you ready? Round 3, you ready? Fight!
Third and final round, Washington Da Silva on the right side of your screen and Colton Smith. And usually I put Chael on the spot here and say, how do you have this one? But I think that second round clearly goes into the category of Colton Smith.
Yes, most definitely. And I would be curious what Da Silva's strategy is going forward here. He hasn't had a moment of this fight where he thought, okay, let's get back to this position because you were dominant there.
Hands high, movement.
And that's frustrating. when you get in these third rounds and you're clearly behind, you
gotta go.
tend to open up a little more on your feet and look for that one big or even a lucky shot if you can. And Da Silva just doesn't seem to have that skill or that tool anywhere in his box.
Set it up.
Circle. Gotta initiate, let's go.
Reminiscent of round number 1, the feeling out process as Da Silva breaks the stalemate, goes midsection with that kick, and Colton Smith back on the bike and gets out of the way.
Come on, guys.
It's got a feel of shadow boxing. You know, they could be doing this in the gym in a mirror and find a little bit of engagement coming from Colton Smith. If you're Washington Da Silva, Jell, I gotta think your corner's telling you we need to pick up some points, and just standing across from your opponent's not gonna get that done.
And surprisingly, I haven't heard the corner tell him that. Well, my guess here, Todd, is that just simply isn't in the wheelhouse of Da Silva. He just isn't entered the cage tonight with that skill set. And yes, he appears to be pretty content here. Colton Smith throwing some pretty good kicks, but at the end of the day,
Believe in it.
Colton Smith just has to beat the clock at this point. It's Da Silva's job to go out and beat Colton Smith.
Lined up, right down the pipe.
That's what the third round's all about.
I got 3 minutes, let's go. Gotta move. He's not doing nothing, man.
Listen to Da Silva's corner. Said about their own fighter, he's not doing nothing, man. And that's a fair assessment.
Touch 632.
Maybe it's because it was in English, not Portuguese, and now Da Silva goes down.
Knock.
It went right in his eye.
Come here.
I don't like to see anyone get poked in the eye. That is not my point here. However, you cannot call timeout in MMA. You cannot do that. The referee has to see it and stop it himself.
Just watch the fingers, all right? Make sure it's close there.
Signaling to the referee that I'm hurt and need a break is what this competition is about. And if you do that, that means the match is over.
So the doctor has been called in for the second time of this fight in 3 rounds for an inadvertent shot. The first one coming from Washington Da Silva. Remember, he lost a
Come on, you
point
gotta go now.
with legal shot to the head with a grounded opponent. This time it's Da Silva getting the finger in the eye from Colton Smith.
Together, let's go.
So back on once again in a very odd fight. The pace has been all over the place. Not a lot of flow to this one, Chael. It's been slow, it's been fast, it's been double stoppage.
Yeah, it's really caught my interest when it's been on the ground as well. I've been really surprised at Colton Smith's transitions and techniques. Right here, he's finally closed the distance. Now we don't have to worry about that space discrepancy anymore. Oh, Colton Smith is caught right here. Da Silva's gonna get this takedown. Round and around they go.
And great defense by Colton Smith to stay on his feet.
I'm not quite sure how he did that.
Just spun out of the way as they go under 2 minutes now in the third and final round here in the welterweight division. World Series of Fighting 24 from Mashantucket, Connecticut.
There you go, Coach. You're there.
And it seemed for a moment there that Washington Da Silva had a little bit of a spark. Looked like he was going to get a takedown.
Get your hooks in.
And right now, Colton Smith is just all over this. He's got so many options right here.
Yeah, he sure does. Colton Smith, boy, he's been slick on the ground tonight. I mean, really taking dominant positions. Right here, he's kind of stuck in between. Even now, his hips are a little bit high if Silva was to pop up. Now, if he can get the legs in, he can settle in. The legs are coming in. Silva's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Pull your arm out of there. There you go.
And if he is, he'll be hauling around a 170-plus pound piece of luggage in the form of Colton Smith.
Right. That was really my larger point. Thank you for saying that. If he does want to walk around, what's that called, Don? A chicken and the stick, I think that's called when we were kids playing in the pool.
The ground and pound, and now Colton Smith trying to sink in a rear naked choke, and it looks like he's just going to go to the alternate game. Alternate hammer fists and punches.
Keep punishing him there.
Da Silva puts the hand up to guard and then try to sink it in for a rear naked choke, and we'll just go back and forth for the next 40 seconds.
Behind that arm, pressure down.
Breathe.
There you go.
Breathe and punish him.
I mean, look at what Colton's got, though. He's got one leg trapped off on one side. He's got the far wrist on the other side, and then he's making you worry about right down the middle with your head because he's striking it with a free hand. This is a mess if you're Da Silva. I can tell you as a coach, Todd, I can't beat this position. There's nothing you can say to your guy. You just hope that he moves and changes the position to something you can work with.
15 seconds.
But he, I think, at this point is going to a happy place, and that's allowing Colton Smith the hot dog just a little bit. Probably not necessary. The final 8 seconds will tick away in what has been less than a masterpiece of a beauty of a fight here.
When that adrenaline comes in after a fist fight, guys will do some strange things, won't they?
Well, let's take a look at some of the highlights that we saw here in 3 rounds of fighting in the welterweight division. But clearly, Colton Smith, the 28-year-old from Fort Hood, Texas, and Vanguard did quite an impressive job of taking away the ground from Washington Da Silva, as the Brazilian really had no answer for the young man who is an active member of the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. Well, let's go ringside and see how the folks at home and the folks here next to the cage scored this one. Chael Sonnen had it 30-27 Smith. The great Renzo Gracie agrees with Chael at 30-27, and the WSOF fans came in about at 30-26. Remember, the point taken away from Washington Da Silva. We now set it up to Jazz for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we do go to the judges' scorecards. Judges David Ginsburg, Eric Colon, and Suzanne Sanidad all score this fight 30-26. Your winner by unanimous decision, Colton Smith.
So Colton Smith gets a unanimous decision, no mystery there, over Washington Da Silva.